There's a peculiar calm in the ruins of time. If you listen closely, past the hum of the modern world, past the static of electric lights and car horns, you might still hear it. The soft whisper of bamboo strips being unrolled, the faint rustle of silk beneath candlelight, and somewhere, the gentle scratch of a scholar's brush gliding over paper that was once the height of human genius. Tonight, we drift back into that sound, into the ancient world of China, long before skyscrapers and bullet trains, when the world's most powerful ideas were written by hand, in silence, by people who had no idea they were changing the course of human civilization. This story isn't about emperors and wars, though there will be plenty of those. It's about invention, about the quiet revolutions that didn't roar like armies or thunder like kings, but instead murmured softly through paper, ink, compasses, and gunpowder. And like most great things, it started not with glory, but with need, with frustration, curiosity, and the eternal human desire to make life just a little easier, or at least a little more interesting. Long before the world called it China, the land was a scattered collection of warring states, each fiercely proud, each determined to outdo the others in art, in science, in philosophy. The air was thick with ambition and incense. Fields stretched out beneath hazy skies, rivers coiled like dragons through valleys heavy with mist. Life was hard, but the human mind, that restless, relentless machine, never stopped churning. And so, in a time when most of the world was still chiseling laws into stone or scratching symbols into clay, the Chinese were already searching for something more graceful, something lighter, something portable. Because if you've ever tried to carry an entire library carved into bamboo, you'll understand why progress was inevitable. In the days before paper, Chinese scholars wrote on strips of bamboo, bound together with string, a sort of prehistoric notebook that, unsurprisingly, weighed about as much as a small child. And while it was durable, it wasn't exactly convenient. A single scroll could stretch for meters. A collection of them could fill an entire room. Imagine trying to copy a poem or an official record, one strip at a time, by candlelight. The ink drying slowly, the fibers swelling with moisture, the characters running together in smudged despair. A bureaucratic nightmare before bureaucracy even had a name. And so, as with all great moments in history, necessity quietly knocked on the door of genius. Enter Kai Lun, or, as history remembers him, the man who changed the world with pulp and patience. It was the 1st century CE, under the Han Dynasty, a golden age when China shimmered with prosperity, poetry, and progress. The empire stretched far and wide, its cities buzzing with scholars, merchants, and alchemists. Kai Lun was an official at the imperial court, a man of detail and discipline. His life revolved around records, documents, and decrees, the endless paper trail of empire, though at the time, it wasn't paper at all. And perhaps somewhere between one scroll and the next, he wondered, there must be a better way. So he experimented. He gathered scraps of old rags, bark, hemp, fishnets, the discarded debris of everyday life, and ground them down with water until they formed a soft, pulpy paste. He pressed it flat, drained it, and left it to dry under the sun. When he peeled it free, he held in his hands something the world had never truly seen: paper. It was lighter than bamboo, smoother than silk, and cheaper than either. A sheet that could hold words, drawings, dreams. For the first time, human thought could spread like wind, no longer bound by the weight of wood or the price of cloth. And as simple as it seemed, this was not just an invention. It was a doorway, one that opened into the future. Because through paper came printing, and through printing came the democratization of knowledge. But that's a story for later. For now, picture the Han Dynasty at its height. Imperial palaces shimmering beneath the sun, courtyards filled with scholars debating Confucian virtues, and somewhere, in the quiet corner of the court, Kai Lun's humble workshop, filled with tubs of pulp and the smell of damp fiber drying into history. He couldn't have known that his creation would outlive empires, that it would carry the words of poets and philosophers, mapmakers and generals, that centuries later it would spread along the Silk Road, cross deserts, sail seas, and reshape entire civilizations, from Baghdad to Byzantine, from the monasteries of Europe to the printing presses of the Renaissance. He couldn't have known, but maybe, just maybe, he felt it. That strange thrill that all inventors feel when something simple becomes something sacred. Because in that quiet moment, when pulp turned to paper, China gave the world not just a tool, but a voice. And from that voice would come countless others, new ideas, new philosophies, and new inventions that would light, guide, and sometimes destroy the world in equal measure. The story of Chinese innovation doesn't end with paper. It only begins there. Because once you learn to write, the next question is inevitable. How far can you go? The sea is a patient teacher. It doesn't shout, it doesn't explain. It simply waits for you to make a mistake. And for thousands of years, humanity obliged. Long before GPS or even reliable maps, sailors relied on the most primitive tools imaginable: the stars above, the coastline beneath, and sheer blind optimism in between. Some made it home, many didn't. But in ancient China, long before Europe dreamed of Columbus or the age of exploration, someone asked a deceptively simple question. What if direction didn't have to vanish with the sun? It began, as so many Chinese innovations did, with something that looked like magic: lodestone, a strange dark mineral that seemed to defy logic, twisting itself toward the north as though obeying an invisible hand. In the hands of Chinese alchemists, this curious rock became a doorway to one of humanity's most transformative discoveries: the magnetic compass. At first, it wasn't for sailors at all. The earliest compasses, around the 3rd century BCE, were used for divination, spiritual navigation, not literal. Imagine a polished bronze plate, upon which rested a spoon-shaped piece of lodestone, carved so delicately that it balanced perfectly. The spoon's handle always pointed south. To the ancients, this wasn't physics. It was the universe whispering secrets. And maybe in its own quiet way, it was. By the Han and Tang dynasties, this curiosity evolved into something far more practical. Artisans and scholars realized that magnetism wasn't just mystical, it was measurable. If a spoon could find south, then perhaps a nation could find its way. Somewhere between myth and metallurgy, a new kind of tool emerged: the world's first navigational compass. The Chinese called it the south-pointing needle. Simple, elegant, world-changing. It was a suspended piece of magnetized iron floating on water, aligning itself with Earth's magnetic field. A natural wonder repurposed by human hands. By the 11th century, during the Song dynasty, Chinese sailors were using compasses at sea. Their ships, vast, sophisticated junks with multiple masts and watertight compartments, sailed across the South China Sea, the Indian Ocean, and beyond. To outsiders, it must have looked like sorcery. Vessels gliding through fog and storm, guided not by the stars, but by the unseen pulse of the planet itself. And just like that, the world opened up. It's easy, from our modern vantage point, to underestimate that moment, to think of it as just another invention. But for ancient mariners, the compass was liberation. It broke the tyranny of daylight. It gave courage to sail into fog and darkness. It turned the chaotic vastness of the ocean into something navigable, something human. And once again, it started in China. Because of course it did. The same civilization that had already given us paper, printing, and bureaucratic efficiency. Because someone, somewhere, always needed more paperwork, was now guiding the world's ships across the seas. But the compass didn't travel alone. Alongside it came maps, beautifully detailed, hand-painted masterpieces that transformed geography into art. Chinese cartographers, meticulous and poetic, mapped not just the land, but the very structure of the cosmos. Their maps were not mere coordinates. They were philosophy rendered in ink. Mountains, rivers, constellations, all arranged in harmony with Tianska, the ancient concept of all under heaven. In their worldview, the emperor's domain wasn't just territory. It was cosmic order, mirrored on Earth. And these maps, paired with the compass, redefine not just travel, but thought itself. Think about that for a moment. A simple floating needle, a piece of drawn silk. Together they gave humanity something extraordinary, a sense of direction, both literal and existential. Because once you can point north, you can also decide where you want to go. You can chase horizons, explore new lands, build empires, or, if you're lucky, simply find your way home. The compass didn't just change how people moved, it changed how they imagined movement. It made the world smaller, but dreams larger. And as it spread through merchants, monks, and mariners, it carried with it whispers of other Chinese wonders. In its wake came technologies that would reshape not just navigation, but knowledge itself. Because once you know where you are, the next question is inevitable. How do you share what you found? The answer, as always, was written on paper. But now it would be printed, multiplied, replicated, and unleashed upon the world. In the next chapter, we enter the age of ink and woodblock, where words began to travel faster than armies, and ideas learned how to conquer continents. The compass showed us where to go. Printing would show us who we are. There's a kind of magic in ink. It's simple, really. Just soot, water, and glue. But under the right hands, it becomes immortal. A single stroke, a single brush dipped in black, and suddenly, thoughts have permanence. in the heart of ancient China, where calligraphy was art and words were sacred, the written character wasn't just communication, it was creation. Every line, every curve carried philosophy. And yet, for all its grace, the written word had one fatal flaw. It was slow. Painfully, impossibly slow. Imagine this. You've just finished writing an entire scroll by hand. Hours of delicate brushwork, wrists aching, eyes blurring under candlelight. You lean back, satisfied, only to realize someone else needs a copy. So you start again, and again, and again. This was the world before printing, a world where knowledge was rare, expensive, and frustratingly fragile. Every book was a luxury, every scholar a craftsman. But that was about to change. Sometime around the 7th century CE, during the Tang Dynasty, an age of poetry, porcelain, and peace, a quiet revolution began. Craftsmen discovered that instead of rewriting each page, they could carve an entire text into wooden blocks, coat them in ink, and press them onto paper. Just like that, the world's first printing press was born. It was called woodblock printing, and it turned words into a kind of sculpture. Each block, painstakingly carved in reverse, became a reusable page. Ink it, press it, and watch as identical copies emerge, one after another, crisp, black, perfect. And perhaps for the first time in history, ideas began to multiply faster than people could suppress them. Because of course they did. The Tang and Song dynasties were already humming with intellectual energy. Poets like Li Bai and Du Fu wandering the empire, scholars debating Confucianism and Taoism in tea houses. But now, those ideas could spread. The classics could be copied. Sutras, prayers, official decrees, all mass-produced, bound in neat stacks of handmade paper. What had once been confined to the elite now trickled, slowly but surely, to the many. It's easy, from our modern vantage point, to forget how radical that was. We live in a world drowning in information, tweets, texts, endless screens. But once upon a time, a printed book was a miracle. It meant access, preservation, immortality. And in a monastery in Dunhuang, on the edge of the Gobi Desert, one such miracle was sealed away. A library of thousands of manuscripts, hidden in a cave. There, in the cool, dry silence, lay the Diamond Sutra, the world's oldest printed book, dated to the year 868 CE. Printed, not handwritten. The words of the Buddha pressed onto paper 6 centuries before Gutenberg was even born. When archaeologists found it 1,000 years later, the ink was still legible, the pages still intact. It was as if the past had been holding its breath. And that's the strange, beautiful thing about invention. You never quite know which part of it will last. The machines decay, the dynasties crumble, but the ink endures. By the 11th century, printing had evolved again, thanks to a man named Bi Sheng. He looked at the clumsy wooden blocks, each one carved for a single page, and thought, what if we just make the letters move? And so he invented movable type, tiny individual clay characters that could be rearranged into new pages and reused endlessly. Now, this was centuries before the West's metal presses, before Europe's revolutionary printing moment. In China, it was already happening, quietly, efficiently, because of course it was. Bi Sheng's invention meant that one could rearrange knowledge itself, reconfigure texts, print quickly, adapt, iterate.
The Song dynasty became an empire of information. Bookstores flourished, libraries expanded, schools multiplied. For the first time in history, education wasn't just for the privileged few. And it all began with ink and wood and one very determined craftsman who didn't want to rewrite the same page twice. Innovation, after all, is often just laziness wearing a crown. But the impact was anything but lazy. Printing became the bloodstream of Chinese civilization. It carried not just words, but culture, Confucian ethics, administrative manuals, poetry anthologies, medical treatises, calendars, almanacs, art catalogs. Everything that could be printed was. And as it spread, so too did the rhythm of literacy. Quiet, unstoppable, like ripples in a pond. Paper and ink gave China permanence. Printing gave it reach. Through these inventions, the Chinese didn't just preserve their world, they expanded it. Every generation could now stand upon the shoulders of the last, reading their words, refining their thoughts, correcting their mistakes. And isn't that, in the end, the essence of civilization? Not the temples or palaces or armies, but the continuity of memory. Still, with knowledge comes power, and with power, inevitably, comes ambition. Because once you can write, you can teach. Once you can print, you can command. And once you can command, well, sometimes you can destroy.
There's a fine line between genius and disaster. And sometimes history only realizes which one it's looking at after something explodes. In ancient China, that explosion began not on a battlefield, but in the dim, smoky rooms of Taoist alchemists, men who searched for immortality and accidentally found the exact opposite. Picture it, the 9th century. The Tang dynasty is waning, but the empire still hums with curiosity. Across mountain monasteries and candlelit chambers, alchemists stir their mixtures of strange minerals, herbs, and dreams. They're chasing the elixir of life, that mythical potion said to grant eternal youth. They mix mercury with sulfur, arsenic with jade dust, drinking from bronze bowls while muttering incantations to the stars. Most of these experiments end in nausea. Some end in death. But one particular mixture ends in something a little louder. Somewhere in the dark, a handful of saltpeter, potassium nitrate, meets sulfur and charcoal. There's a hiss, then a spark, then a flash so bright it scorches the walls. And there it is, the most destructive accident in human history: gunpowder. It's almost poetic, isn't it? A civilization obsessed with balance, with harmony, Tao, Yin, and Yang, ends up inventing the very thing that would blow harmony to pieces. But the Chinese didn't see it that way, at least not at first. To them, this was a marvel. Fire trapped in powder form, lightning you could hold, the fire medicine, as they called it, Hua Yao. And like all great inventions, it began humbly. The earliest use of gunpowder wasn't for war, it was for wonder. Taoist priests used it in rituals, tossing small packets into flames to summon divine sparks. By the 10th century, festivals featured fireworks, crackling bursts of light that climbed into the night sky and shattered into color. Imagine that moment, the first firework lighting the darkness above an ancient Chinese city. The crowd gasping, children laughing, the air thick with smoke and joy. The alchemist probably smiled too.
unaware that they had just lit the fuse on 1,000 years of warfare. Because, as it turns out, once humans find a way to make something go boom, it's only a matter of time before they start aiming it at each other. Distant rumble of drums. By the Song dynasty, gunpowder had left the temple and entered the arsenal. At first, it was crude. Bamboo tubes packed with powder set alight to frighten enemies. But soon, the recipes improved. The mixtures grew hotter, the explosions stronger. Engineers began to weaponize it with the methodical patience only bureaucracy can provide. They created fire arrows, regular arrows tipped with small gunpowder charges capable of igniting enemy lines. Then came fire lances, bamboo spears that spat flames and sparks, a terrifying sight on the battlefield. And then, the unthinkable, metal tubes. Somewhere around the 12th century, a Song craftsman replaced bamboo with bronze, filled it with powder, packed in shrapnel, and pointed it toward the horizon. When it fired, history took a new turn. The world's first true gun had just been born. Not elegant, not accurate, but revolutionary. The enemies of the Song dynasty, from Mongol raiders to rebellious warlords, learned quickly that the Chinese had turned their alchemy into artillery. And yet, it's worth remembering how strange this must have felt. For thousands of years, war had been the domain of muscle and metal. Swords, arrows, chariots. Strength and skill defined victory. But now, with the pinch of powder, even the weakest soldier could unleash thunder. The battlefield had changed. Not in noise, but in meaning. And as gunpowder spread along the Silk Road, through trade and conquest, it carried with it both wonder and dread. The Arabs learned it first, then the Europeans. By the 14th century, cannons roared in the West. By the 16th, muskets lined the fields of empire. But the spark, that first spark, was Chinese. It's a strange legacy, isn't it? From the pursuit of immortality came the invention of death on an industrial scale. And yet, even here, there's a kind of cosmic irony, a balance. Because the same culture that gave birth to fireworks and gunpowder also gave us paper and printing. The same hands that painted dragons in ink also cast cannons in bronze. The same minds that dreamed of harmony also invented the tools that would one day erase it. But that's history. It never moves in straight lines. It swirls, contradicts, loops back on itself like a dragon chasing its tail. Every invention carries both promise and peril, creation and destruction, ink and fire. And the Chinese understood that balance better than anyone. Even today, each Lunar New Year, when fireworks bloom across the night sky, you can still feel a little of that ancient paradox. Beauty born from danger, celebration born from combustion. The crowd watches, the colors fade, and the smoke drifts quietly into the stars. The alchemists sought to conquer death. Instead, they gave the world a way to announce it. History doesn't end. It fades. Empires fall not with a crash, but with a whisper. And yet, the things they create, those quiet works of human hands and thought, they linger.
like footprints in the dust that even time hesitates to erase. Tonight, we've walked through 1,000 years of invention, from the rustle of bamboo and silk to the roar of fire and thunder. Paper, compass, printing, gunpowder. 4 creations that began in the hearts of ancient China and rippled outward until they shaped the world we now live in. Paper made thought portable. It allowed the human mind to travel farther than the body ever could. It turned ideas into artifacts, letting us fold eternity into something that could fit in the sleeve. Without it, there would be no books, no letters, no history, only silence carried on the wind. Then came the compass, that quiet little miracle of magnetism. A needle, trembling, loyal only to the unseen. It gave direction to both sailors and civilizations, turning the vast chaos of the world into something navigable. It pointed not just north, but forward. And printing, that mechanical miracle of ink and imagination, it democratized wisdom. It let peasants read the words once reserved for emperors. It multiplied stories, doctrines, maps, prayers. It made memory mass-producible. And finally, gunpowder. The spark that taught humanity the price of progress. It burned as brightly in the skies of celebration as it did on the fields of war. A reminder that creation and destruction are often the same hand, simply turned over. Together, these inventions formed the skeleton of the modern world. They crossed deserts and oceans, traveling from China along the Silk Road, carried by traders, monks, and conquerors. Each invention morphed as it moved. Paper became parchment, then books, then newspapers. The compass guided caravans and explorers into lands no map had ever named. Printing reshaped religion, education, even rebellion. Gunpowder redrew the borders of the world itself. By the time the Renaissance arrived in Europe, many of its greatest breakthroughs had Chinese ancestors whispering beneath the surface. It's not that the West copied China, it's that humanity, connected by trade and curiosity, finally began to share a single story. That story began with ink drying in the warm air of a Han Dynasty courtyard. A long, meditative pause. Then, the tone shifts to something personal. When we talk about innovation, we often imagine light bulbs in laboratories, people in white coats, and machines that hum. But the truth is, quieter. Innovation, real innovation, almost always begins with someone asking a simple question. How can I make this easier? How can I make this last? How can I make this better? Kai Lin wasn't trying to start a revolution when he mixed rags and bark into pulp. He just wanted better paper. Bi Sheng wasn't trying to reinvent civilization. He just didn't want to carve another woodblock. And those Taoist alchemists, they were just trying not to die. And yet, somehow, all of them succeeded in ways they never intended. There's a lesson in that, maybe the only one worth remembering, that the most enduring changes come not from conquest, but curiosity, not from power, but persistence.
The Chinese civilization was never static. It was a living mind, observing, adapting, tinkering. Its greatest weapon wasn't fire or armies, but patience. The patience to experiment, to fail, to begin again.
We like to think of history as a list of rulers and wars, but it's really a story of problem solvers. People who looked at the ordinary, a reed, a rock, a bit of ash, and saw possibility. And when you trace all those threads back through time, through smoke and ink, through empires that rose and fell like breaths, you find yourself once again in that quiet workshop somewhere in ancient China where a man is stirring pulp in a wooden vat. He doesn't know it yet, but he's about to give the world a way to remember itself. Thousands of years later, we're still writing on his invention, still guided by the same invisible magnetic pull, still printing our thoughts, our fears, our dreams, on screens, on paper, on clouds of data floating through the digital ether. Even gunpowder has found new homes in celebrations, in fireworks, in the artificial stars we launch to mark our greatest nights. The tools have changed. The impulse has not. We still want to reach further, move faster, understand more, and we still, more often than not, don't realize what we've created until it's already out of our hands. Maybe that's what connects us to those early inventors, the hope that something we make, however small, might outlast us, that even when the dynasty fades, the flame goes out, and the paper turns to dust, some part of our thought will still be carried forward, quietly, in the hands of strangers.
Paper, compass, printing, gunpowder. 4 inventions that reshaped the world. And yet, in the end, they're only mirrors, reflections of the human condition, of our brilliance and our blindness, our wonder and our folly. We are creatures of invention. We are creatures of fire and ink. And maybe in that contradiction lies our truest legacy. So the next time you hold a book or watch fireworks bloom across the sky, remember, somewhere 2,000 years ago, someone in ancient China was wondering how to make life just a little bit better. And in doing so, they made the world.